Today I'm going to read to you the Ledgerbook of Thomas Blue Eagle. We'll talk at the end of the book a little bit more about the school that's in this book and the type of artwork. And you'll notice this book opens a little different than most books. It actually is going to go from top to bottom instead of from left to right. The Ledgerbook of Thomas Blue Eagle. I was born in the moon when the ponies shed their shaggy hair. I was horseback before I could walk. When I was 8 winters, my father, called Iron Arm, gave me my own beautiful pony. My pony was strong and proud, and at first we had many arguments. I painted him with different earth colors on each side and called him Two-Painted Horse. Often I tied up his tail as if for war and gave him bird feathers to wear in his mane. Two-Painted Horse was my very best friend. In my dreams, we became invincible. My father taught me to be brave. He said it is far more brave to touch an enemy or to take his horse than to kill him. My father also taught me to shoot my bow. He made me blunt-headed arrows so that I did not hurt myself. Soon I was able to hit faraway targets while racing about on Two-Painted Horse. But the greatest coup I could count would be to touch an enemy with my bow, not to hit him with my arrows. All of our warriors painted pictures of their brave deeds or marked them on coup sticks. We were the people of the buffalo. They gave us our teepees, our clothes, our meat, our robes, tools, shields, bowstrings, sewing thread, and runners for our winter sleds. We lived side by side with the buffalo. Their life gave us life, and we hunted them for only what we needed. We had many ceremonies to thank the buffalo and honor its spirit. Red Feather, our holy man, warned us that one day a strange pale tribe would come and make a fence around us, and then the buffalo would run back into the earth, taking our way of life with them. Whenever we moved our camp, we set up our teepees on the green plains that were spread out like a robe before us. Our teepees were round like the sun and the moon. My people believe there is great power in a circle. My people had no books with words, but we had picture writing. Our storytellers would speak our history around the council fire, and each year Red Feather would paint the winner's count of our hunts and battles and sacred events on a buffalo hide. We made our paints from baked earth and crushed berries, and our brushes from buffalo bones and sharpened sticks. For paint pots, we used turtle shells. All these gifts came from our Mother Earth. Sometimes we traded for other painting things. Our village played ball games, and everyone made bets. The ball was cut from scraps of buckskin sewed with sinew, and we carved our bats from ashwood. Our field was as long as the whole camp, and sometimes 50 men were on a team. They painted their bodies and their bats, and they wore only breechcloths and moccasins. We boys rode up and down the fields on our ponies, shouting at the players. We followed huge herds of buffalo over the plains, packing our teepees on pony drags and our other belongings on dogs. When our hunters had killed as many buffalo as we needed, the women tanned the hides and dried the meat for food. We children gathered berries while our mothers made pemmican from tallow, bone marrow, strips of meat, and choke cherries pounded together. I kept some pemmican in my parchment and ate it on long trips and on cold, snowy days when there was no game to be found or to hunt. One evening, when many of our men were away on expedition and I was scouting on horseback, I heard a strange noise. I jumped down and crept through the trees. I discovered a party of our enemies, the Crow, with their tall, stiff hair, preparing themselves for battle to take revenge for a horse raid our braves had made. Suddenly, the war party got on their horses and galloped toward me on the way to our camp. I could do nothing but hide, squeezed between two trees. The Crow charged like thunderlings, and I chased after them, reaching the camp to find them slashing our teepees and yelling their war cries. Some of my people were killed, and the rest ran in all directions. I saw a crow strike down Red Feather and take his medicine pouch. I feared for my family and was full of much sadness. I climbed inside a hollow tree and remained very still. My presence did not even bother the winged ones. I asked the spirit of the tree to protect me. After a long time, it became very great, and the tree gave me very quiet, and the tree gave me a vision. I saw a bear dancing and heard it singing, and then I saw two mighty eagles fighting. Suddenly, I too became an eagle. With blue feathered wings, I soared into the sky and disappeared. When the sky became light, I left the tree and ran to the hills far away from our camp. I climbed higher and higher until I saw an eagle's nest with 3 small eagles in it screeching for food. As I scrambled up the nest, some of the rocks crumbled, starting an earthfall. There was no way for me to go back down. I fed the little birds some of my pemmican and my mother had made, and their mother fed me. We drank rainwater that collected in a hollow place in the rock. I stayed on the ledge until the moon of the falling leaves. By that time, my winged brothers had learned to fly and to hunt for their own food. I despaired of ever seeing my people and 2 painted horse again. One day, the parent eagles asked if they could help me find my parents. They lifted me gently with their strong claws, and the others flew out in front. Making an upwards wind, we glided down over the sharp crags to the foothills below. We flew far out over the plains until we came near a camp. I looked down below and saw my father and mother and my 2 painted horse. The eagles set me down and I ran to my family. All of our eyes were wet with happiness, and my heart was full of thankfulness. There was great joy and celebration. I told of my vision and my time with the eagles. My father was not surprised, for he knew the eagles had great power. After this, I was called Blue Eagle. The first time I saw a white man, I thought he was sick because he was so pale. He was a trapper who came to our land to hunt our animals and to trade with us. I soon saw the beaver skin on his chin was really his own hair. From the hills, 2 painted horse and I spied on the trapper's mules. I planned to capture them and take all the trapper's pelts. After all, he had taken them from our land and had not traded anything with us in return. Mules are harder to steal than horses. They're slower and more stubborn. But the trapper's mules came willingly when they heard our calls. I was able to show my father how brave I was by stealing the white man's mules and his pelts while he set his traps. I marked this coup on my coup stick. Soon, many more white men came rolling across our plains in teepees on wheels. After a short time, there was almost no room for us or for the 4-legged. We had to travel great distance to find food. I recall Red Feather's warning and my dream about the Battle of the Eagles. My father told me that to survive these changes, we must learn more about the white man, but we must not become tangled in his bad ways. He told me to remember my dream and always to honor our ways in our Mother Earth. The white man hunted all over our plains and soon killed most of the buffalo. Then he was no longer content to cross our land with his iron road. He wanted to keep the land and the yellow metal that was in it. We made treaties to protect our hunting grounds. We were forced to move to a place called a reservation. The white man broke the treaties. We went to war. We fought Long-Hair Custer and defeated him. Soldiers swarmed into our hills with guns that fired many times without ceasing. Their guns were stronger than our trade guns. There was so much death. A soldier came to my father and asked him to send me to a place called Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The soldier promised to teach me the white man's language and his skills. He told my father that other children of head men were going to Carlisle. At first, my father refused, but then he remembered my vision. With a heavy heart, he said I could go. He wanted me to understand the strange rules and the power of the white man. I went with other children inside a long row of little houses sitting on the iron road. Suddenly, the houses started to move, and I thought they would fall over. The big boys told me the white men were taking us to the edge of the world, and they would push us over the side. I was afraid, but then I could see that they were testing me. They did not know where we were going either. I came to Carlisle wearing my new blue blanket and deerskin leggings worked with beads. My braids were wrapped with red cloth. There were children from many different tribes wearing their finest clothing too. The white people at the school were called teachers, and they wore stiff, dark dresses and uniforms with shiny buttons. We were given white men clothes and heavy boots to wear, and our own clothes were casted away. The teachers cut off our long hair and made us bald-headed. At first, we thought it was our parents had been killed. It is our way to cut off our hair in mourning. But the teachers told us it was their way for young men to become educated. I did not know why I couldn't keep my hair to learn the ways of the white men. Our teacher showed us marks on the blackboard that could be our new names. We each had to point to the one we wanted. It was not the Sioux way of earning a name. My friend, Singing Bear, who was Red Father's granddaughter, picked the name Julia for herself. She liked the sound of the English name Thomas for me. I became Thomas Blue Eagle. Tall Tree, a big crow, became Henry. We all learned reading, numbers, and geography. In the afternoon, we boys did tinsmithing, printing, or carpentry, and the girls did sewing, cooking, or planting. My favorite part of school was when the teacher gave me this ledger book and color sticks to tell my story. It made me think of Red Feather and his winter count. It made me think of my home and my four-legged friends and the winged ones. Soon we all spoke of the white man's language, and we were forbidden to speak our own language. We wrote our stories in English. We even made prayers to the white man's God, but I do not think he heard us. At night, we had to wear long red suits that scratched our skin. We slept on iron beds. It was very different from sleeping in my warm teepee under buffalo robes with two painted horses nearby. Each boy was only allowed one keepsake to remind him of his home. I had the parfleche my mother had painted in the belongings of Henry Talltree. I saw Red Feather's medicine pouch. I knew I had to take the pouch back to my people. We Carlisle boys loved to play football. The white man's football game was very different from our ball game. The ball was not round, and everyone wore heavy woolen sweaters and spiky shoes. When we played against other teams, we always won because we were much faster. In one practice, I was hit very hard in the belly by the bully, Henry Talltree. He was wearing Red Feather's medicine pouch. I jumped on him, and he fell down, and I got the football and the medicine pouch at the same time. Talltree sneaked up on me one evening when we were camping out. He was desperate to take back Red Feather's medicine pouch. We fought for a long time, and he stabbed me with something sharp. I called out to him with power words and told him that the medicine pouch belonged to Singing Bear's grandfather. To my surprise, Tall Tree dropped his weapon and slunk back toward the dormitory. I kept the medicine pouch and went back to the school, where Singing Bear saw me bleeding. Julia took the sacred things from Red Feather's medicine pouch. She touched them to me and prayed the sacred powers to heal me. In a short time, my wound closed and there was no more blood. Then she called out to Tall Tree and told him that we must perform a peace ceremony. Julia said that there should be friends, that us three should be friends. We were far away from our homes, and this was a new time for all of our people. I did not know that Red Feather's granddaughter also knew healing ways. I had much regard for Julia Singing Bear. Tall Tree brought tobacco in town, and I took a small pipe from Red Feather's medicine pouch. Julia lit the match, and we smoked the pipe. The smoke encircled us, lifting our prayers and thanks up to the great powers. In this way, Tall Tree became my brother, and Julia my sister. Now, it has been 6 years and I will be going home. My family will meet me with 2 painted horses pulling their buggy. I will bring Julia Singing Bear on my arm, and we will return Red Feather's medicine pouch to our people. I have learned the white man's ways, as my father wished. I have learned his numbers and tools. I have learned to tell my stories with the white man's words. I have also learned that the white man does not see with the eyes in his heart, and that he does not hear our Mother Earth crying. Wisdom comes to us in dreams. When I am home, I will run on the plains with 2 painted horse, and free like the wind. I will cherish our Mother Earth and her gifts. I will open my arms again to the great powers and honor the dreams they send to me. The end. All right, so let's get a little background. This is a fiction book. It is a made-up story, but it is based on true events. The Carlisle Indian School did exist from 1879 to 1918. It was founded by Captain Richard Henry Pratt in barracks that the Army had been using since the Revolutionary War. The Carlisle's barracks and school is still there, but today it's housing the War College for the Army. The Indian school was designed specifically to teach the young Indians the white man's skills in the civilized East away from the reservations. Most of the children could not read or write in English, and they were forbidden to speak their own language, just like the book said. At first, they would use slates and paper and coloring materials, and they would communicate with their teachers through pictures, which they called word pictures. The children would record important events from their early lives. These were traditional pictographic methods of their ancestors, and they had observed their elders using like painting on the buckskins and the robes. Among the Plain Indians, pictographs were used 2 distinctly different ways. They were served as mnemonic devices to record historical events, like the winter counts, and they were painted on hides, and the other was narratives or stories, and they would paint those on robes, teepees, shields, and other objects. Stories and pictographs normally read from right to left instead of left to right. Portions of the figures are represented whole. Sometimes they're almost a cartoon-like with wavy lines. The drawing was done in freehand style, which is what we saw in this book today. That looks like almost like hand-drawn or hand artwork in pencil or ink, and then filled in with color. They don't usually do any attempt at perspective or anything. As the students learned to write in English, they sometimes added words to their picture stories. And the children at Carlisle, both male and female, were exposed to art forms that were favored by the white man. As a result, they rapidly developed different ways of drawing and actually ended up abandoning the pictograph style that their tribes and family members had used for generations. Very few pictograph drawings at Carlisle that was made from 1879 to 1885 have even been preserved. Many were created because that's how they would use to tell their stories when they didn't speak English yet, but they were not kept for us to see today. This book was inspired by the beautiful ledger drawings made by the Plains Indians in the late 19th century, and it's contained in private collections and different museums. But that's what this book and the artwork is actually based on. So that's why it looks like a journal or artwork. Hope you guys enjoyed the Ledger Book of Thomas Blue Eagle.